The golden sands of Egypt have always whispered stories of eternity. Towering pyramids pierce the sky, colossal statues gaze across the desert, and the Nile, river of life, flows endlessly, feeding one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. For thousands of years, the pharaohs of Egypt were seen not merely as kings, but as gods on earth. Their word was law, their power unquestioned, their tombs designed to outlast time itself. To their people, the pharaoh embodied the will of the gods and the balance of the universe. But history rarely bows to perfection. Beneath the shimmering image of divine rule, darker truths lay buried, truths of conspiracy, treachery, and betrayal from within. For if the pharaoh was the eternal guardian of Ma'at, the sacred order of the cosmos, then how could he fall by the hand of his own family, his own generals, even his own wives? Archaeologists have uncovered chilling clues. In the boy king Tutankhamun's tomb, early X-rays once seemed to show a skull fracture, fueling sensational theories of assassination. Yet modern CT scans and DNA analyses, 2010, reveal a different picture. Malaria parasites in his blood, a badly broken leg that became infected, and congenital deformities likely caused by inbreeding. Murder remains unproven, but the shadow of palace intrigue still lingers. Centuries later, under Ramses III, a palace coup, the harem conspiracy, sought to topple a living god, later recorded in the judicial papyrus of Turin. These betrayals did not come from enemies beyond Egypt's borders. They were born within the very walls of the palace. Officials, priests, and even family members breaking sacred oaths. For all their monuments to eternity, the pharaohs could not escape the fragility of human ambition. And so, the great paradox of Egypt emerges, a civilization built on the divine power of its rulers, yet undone time and again by treachery from within. The world remembers the pyramids, the temples, the gold, but behind the masks of eternity lay secrets darker than death itself. But the truth behind Egypt's glory is much darker. Around 3100 BCE, kingship on the Nile was consolidated. The Narmer palette depicts one ruler with both crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt, while early royal tombs at Abydos and ceilings with the king's Serek confirm a continuous early dynasty. Later, Menes traditions likely recall Narmer or Aha. The material record points to a centralized court. Administration came first. Officials marked containers and ceilings with hieroglyphic early hieratic signs to track goods. Large mastaba tombs at Saqqara and Abydos belonged to senior officials, evidence of a managerial class handling taxation, storage, and labor. The economy hinged on the annual flood and the state's capacity to store and redistribute surplus. Cereals taken as in-kind tax funded rations, bread and beer for workers and specialists. Flood notes and seasonal registers suggest the court forecast harvests. A granary system buffered risk and financed royal projects. Control of resources extended state reach. At Wadi Magara, Sinai, early royal reliefs record campaigns for copper and turquoise. To the south, Nubia supplied gold. Labeled jars noting origin show goods were counted, sealed, and routed through royal storerooms to construction sites and cult centers. A major leap arrived in the Third Dynasty. Under Djoser, The architect Imhotep built the step pyramid complex at Saqqara, the earliest nation-scale experiment in monumental stone. Its precinct reveals organized quarrying, river transport, and skilled masonry. Standardized Torah limestone blocks, moved by boat and sled, point to a planned supply chain. In the 4th dynasty, these systems peaked at Giza. Excavations at the workers' town, Hayt el-Ghurab, uncovered barracks, bakeries, and breweries, evidence of a rationed, supported workforce rather than slave gangs. Cemeteries near the site confirm overseers and craftsmen held recognized status. Inside the pyramids, hidden quarry gang graffiti, Friends of Khufu, Drunkards of Menkaure, puts organized crews on the stones. For logistics, nothing matches the Narmer papyri from Wadi el-Jurf, the oldest known Red Sea harbor. Daybooks by an inspector named Narmer describe boating Tura limestone to Akhet Khufu, the Giza project, listing departures, docking points, and deliveries. Primary documentation of scheduling and transport behind a royal monument. Government matured with infrastructure. A vizier coordinated registries, courts, and construction. Provincial nomarchs served the crown. Temples operated as economic estates alongside ritual roles. By the 5th and 6th dynasties, royal building broadened and the fiscal load increased. Provincial lineages entrenched. Temple endowments diverted land and labor from direct royal taxation, and estate fragmentation complicated requisitions. Climate records indicate increased aridity around 2200 BCE, the 4.2K event, which would have magnified these pressures. Around 2181 BCE, central authority fractured in the First Intermediate Period. In sum, Egypt's rise rests on records and logistics. From the Narmer palette to Merer's logbooks and the Giza workers' town, hard evidence of a machine capable of building for eternity. The New Kingdom's glory is visible in sources we can still read today: carved annals, boundary and foundation inscriptions, diplomatic tablets, and the uniquely intact royal tomb. Hatshepsut, circa 1473 to 1458 BCE, set an auditable model of prosperity. At Deir el-Bahari, reliefs of the Punt expedition show ships, incense trees with root balls, and itemized cargo, a visual ledger of state-managed trade. Per obelisks at Karnak and quarry inscriptions at Aswan document extraction, river transport, and installation. Deliverables the court could count. Thutmose III demonstrated how far Egyptian logistics could project power. The Karnak Annals narrate Megiddo, 1457 BCE, with route choices, siege steps, and tallies of booty and hostages. Over roughly 17 campaigns, lists of copper, timber, chariots, and livestock read like spreadsheets in hieroglyphs. Empire by inventory, receipted through royal and temple stores. Quarry also meant cult centers that doubled as economic hubs. At Karnak, the hypostyle hall, mainly Seti I and Ramses II, stands on 134 columns. Reliefs record offerings, building claims, and festival calendars. Opet festival scenes move the Bark of Amen from Karnak to Luxor Temple, expanded by Amenhotep III, later embellished by Ramses II, direct evidence for ritual timetables and city-scale provisioning. Under Amenhotep III, circa 1390 to 1352 BCE, elite consumption and diplomacy peaked. The Amarna letters, hundreds of cuneiform tablets from his reign and his sons, preserve correspondence with Babylon, Mitanni, Hatti, and Levantine courts, requests for gold, exchanges of princesses, and the "my brother" formula, signaling parity among great kings. His monumental footprint includes the Colossi of Memnon and a palace complex at Malkata, attested by architectural remains and painted floors. Akhenaten, circa 1353 to 1336 BCE, shows how quickly a pharaoh could reroute resources. Cliff-cut boundary stelae circumscribe the new capital Akhenaten, Amarna. The city's archaeological grid, state housing, workshops, temples, tracks accelerated construction tied to the Aten cult. The restoration stela under Tutankhamun later claims to reopen temples and repair cults, giving the regime's stated rationale for reversing course. Tutankhamun, circa 1332 to 1323 BCE, matters because his tomb was found sealed in 1922. Chariots, weapons, shrines, garments, and the gold mask form a dated assemblage of royal equipment and funerary ideology. Rare hard data for court life and burial practice that anchors stylistic and technological chronologies, with Ramses II, 1279 to 1213 BCE. Royal signatures stretch from Nubia to the Delta. At Abu Simbel, 4 seated colossi hewn from the cliff advertise presence on the southern frontier. Quarry marks and foundation scenes attest planning and manpower. His clash with the Hittites at Kadesh, circa 1274 BCE, appears in Egyptian and Hittite sources and culminates in the Egyptian-Hittite peace treaty around 1259 BCE, preserved in hieroglyphs and cuneiform, the oldest surviving accord of its kind and a rare case where competing archives let us compare propaganda with policy. Below the royal headlines, Deir el-Medina's ostraka and papyri record grain rations, tool requisitions, absences, and legal disputes, an administrative microcosm of specialist labor. Taken together, campaign annals that count, letters that negotiate, boundary stelae that fix new capitals, and a sealed tomb that inventories a king's gear. These sources justify the word glory. They show a state able to quarry, ferry, feed, and pay at scale, to stage festivals that reaffirmed authority, to fight when needed, and formalize peace when prudent. The brilliance carved on walls was backed by ledgers and supply lines, the measurable engine behind Egypt's high tide. Egypt's dark side is unusually well documented. Papyri, ostraka, inscriptions, and modern CT scans exposing palace plots, labor strikes, and tomb robbery inside the royal system. After Tutankhamun's death, power passed rapidly to Ai and then Horemheb, proof of how exposed the center became when a young king died. Ramses III, circa 1184 to 1153 BCE. Here, the sources are explicit. The judicial papyrus of Turin, with related Roland and Lee papyri, preserves interrogation notes, verdicts, and sentences from the harem conspiracy led by Queen Tiye to enthrone her son, Pentawere. Named officials, scribes, and harem women are assigned precise roles. Messages carried, guards bribed, poisons prepared. CT scans show a deep, fatal throat cut. Imaging also records a perimortem chop to the left big toe, later dressed with protective amulets. Punishments ranged from execution to forced suicide. The mummy, dubbed Unknown Man E, with signs of strangulation, shows kinship to the royal line. Many identify him with Pentawere, though Egyptologists emphasize the ID remains unproven. A living god, died inside his own household. His murder turns a divine title into a vulnerable office. Workers versus the state. Documents from the royal tomb artisans' village, Deir el-Medina, track ration arrears, tool requests, and absences in meticulous script. In year 29 of Ramses III, circa 1158 BCE, the workforce staged the earliest recorded strike. They downed tools, marched to nearby temples, and demanded grain rations owed to them. The texts preserve their petitions and the officials' piecemeal payouts from temple stores, direct evidence of fiscal strain and administrative delay at the core of the royal project. Guardians who plundered. Under Ramses IX, the papyrus, abbot, and companion dossiers read like forensic files. Inspectors measured breaches, inventoried missing goods, and recorded confessions describing how thieves entered tombs, stripped mummies of gold, and melted ornaments. Several statements implicate necropolis personnel, the very guardians of the royal dead, as guides or profit sharers, revealing collusion enabled by insider knowledge and weak oversight. Temples as counterpowers. By the late New Kingdom, Papyrus Harris I lists the vast estates of Amun at Thebes, an economic machine capable of shaping succession. A pattern in the paperwork. Ostraka from Deir el-Medina preserve petitions accusing overseers of skimming pay. Court notes cite forgery and embezzlement. Necropolis journals record missed deliveries and delayed rations. No single entry looks apocalyptic, but together they form a mesh of small failures, arrears here, collusion there, that eroded the absolutist image carved on temple walls. The picture that emerges is not rumor, but named conspirators, signed confessions, ration tallies, and CT-imaged wounds. When a young king died, insiders moved fast. When a strong king ruled, conspirators could still reach his throat. When money tightened, workers walked and guards stole. The same civilization that perfected lists, ledgers, and audits left a precise account of its own internal undoing. Betrayal measured, sentenced, and, in one notorious case, wrapped in linen. By the 12th century BCE, the New Kingdom was fraying. As the harem conspiracy records make clear, even the king was no longer safe inside his own palace. The fracture began at the core. Administrative strain is written line by line in late Ramesside paperwork. Deir el-Medina's records, most notably the year 29 strike, show the provisioning engine misfiring at the heart of the royal project. Abroad, Egypt's reach contracted. Medinet Habu claims victory over the Sea Peoples, yet garrison and tribute records thin out. Propaganda stays bold as capacity ebbs. Power migrated inward, particularly to sanctuaries. By the Third Intermediate Period, Amun's Theban estate functioned as a parallel administration, producing a dual polity: kings at Tanis and high priests of Amun in Upper Egypt. Dynastic instability compounded the split. In the 21st to 22nd dynasties, short reigns and Libyan origin lineages are attested in king lists and on the Bubastit portal at Karnak. Campaigns appear on stone, but authority was fragmented, bargained with local elites, and often contested within ruling families. From the south, Nubia advanced. the victory stela of Pie, Kyanki, in the late 8th century BCE, narrates his campaign that subdued Delta rulers and captured Memphis, inaugurating the 25th dynasty. Kushite pharaohs restored temples and invoked classic rites, but their revival collided with rising Mesopotamian power. Assyrian annals pick up the thread. Esarhaddon seized Memphis in 671 BCE. Ashurbanipal pushed farther, and Assyrian records famously note the sack of Thebes, 663 BCE. Read alongside Egyptian sources. These external archives mark a phase when the Nile state could no longer keep great power rivals out of its heartland. Imperial takeover followed from Persia. In 525 BCE, Cambyses II defeated Psamtik III near Pelusium and made Egypt a satrapy, the 27th dynasty. The conquest is supported by Egyptian and Greek traditions and by Persian imperial evidence. Colorful later anecdotes aside, the hard fact is loss of sovereignty. Native rule flickered in later dynasties, but the geopolitical tide had turned. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great entered with minimal resistance, was acknowledged as pharaoh, and founded Alexandria, ushering in the Hellenistic era. Brought together trial papyri, ostraca, temple endowment lists, royal and foreign annals, and medical imaging. The record shows a slide driven as much by internal fragmentation as by foreign arms. When rations failed, workers struck. When temples amassed land and income, they rivaled the throne. When the court fractured, outsiders walked in. Egypt's fall was not a single collapse, but a long unspooling, documented by the very systems that once powered its glory. Today, the Egypt of the pharaohs is gone. The last crown was buried centuries ago, but its shadows still tower over our imagination. The pyramids of Giza rise against the desert sky, testaments to ambition carved in stone. The Valley of the Kings, once guarded in secrecy, still hides tombs beneath the cliffs of Luxor. In museums around the world, the treasures of Tutankhamun glitter beneath glass, silent witnesses to a civilization that dreamed of eternity. Egypt's influence did not vanish with its kings. To the Greeks, Egypt was a land of wisdom and wonder. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, called it the gift of the Nile and described its customs with awe. Greek philosophers studied in Egyptian temples. Mathematicians and astronomers borrowed from its priests. Later, the Romans adopted Egyptian gods, building temples to Isis as far away as London. Even after the pharaohs had fallen, Egypt shaped the empires that came after. The written word preserved Egypt's voice. For centuries, hieroglyphs were a mystery, their meaning lost. Only with the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799, inscribed in 3 scripts, did scholars unlock their secrets. Suddenly, the voices of the ancients spoke again. The decrees of pharaohs, the prayers of priests, the records of conspiracies. It was as if the dead themselves had begun to speak. Modern archaeology has peeled back layer after layer of Egypt's hidden truths. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb by Howard Carter in 1922 ignited global fascination. CT scans and DNA studies of mummies now reveal illnesses, injuries, even family ties, reminding us that behind the golden masks were mortal men and women, vulnerable, flawed, and often betrayed. The boy king with a clubfoot, the warrior king with his throat slit. These are not legends, but human tragedies. And yet, Egypt's monuments endure. The pyramids still stand when countless empires have turned to dust. The colossal temples at Karnak and Abu Simbel still rise, their hieroglyphs whispering of glory and downfall. Even in ruin, they speak of humanity's greatest paradox, the desire to live forever, and the inevitability of betrayal and death. Lesson: great empires crack from within, and Egypt left the proof on papyrus and in cut bone, not in legend.